CRT. We're going to have Danny on the pro side and Anthony on the against side. So I think the best way to start it is going to be to just get a definition of what CRT is. So you can give a definition, Danny, and then Anthony can attack that definition until we agree.
Okay, sounds good. So my definition is going to go a little more in depth on what actual critical theory is, not just critical race theory, because I think that's very important when talking about any kind of theoretical concept, especially within like college-based literature, because it's all ideas built upon each other when we talk about it. So one important name in critical theory, especially within this structure, is Michel Foucault, not Michael Foucault, as other people would say. But he was a French philosopher, historian of ideas, writer, political activist, and a literary critic. So he criticized books and stuff like that. Weird hobby, but still, for like a philosopher, maybe it's not really a weird hobby. But his fundamental, what he studied and why he's my second favorite, I guess, dissident, right? Because he kind of was in France. My first favorite is Noam Chomsky. Was because he looked at how power and knowledge interact within a society and how they form some kind of societal control within institutions in general. This is not race. So when we talk about critical theory, this is basically what it's built on. The actual definitions, understanding society by describing and analyzing the power relations, between different groups within that society. So, and what he looked upon, and one of the examples he used was the panopticon. That is a prison archetype, and what that is like a cylinder, right? And with a big guard tower in the middle, and that guard tower can see into all the cells, but the prisoners can't see each other. They can only see the guard tower watching, but they can't see if the guard is even watching them because the thing is like shut. So it's a very isolated area where, you really can't have an exchange of ideas between different groups, is what he was trying to really, say there. But that's not really, critical race theory, but that's the backing behind critical race theory is, Michel Foucault's theory on societal power structure. Now, I will define it right now using a PragerU definition. Okay, so but this is not my definition. I just say this is how they would define it. I copied and pasted this off of a video from PragerU. Okay, so let me get it up here. Okay, critical race theory holds the most important thing about you is your race, the color of your skin. That's who you are. That was their definition. So my first, thing about that is critical race theory doesn't have any prescriptive judgments, which when I say prescriptive, I'm not trying to go and say that, the most important thing about what's going on in your life is the fact that you're black or white. That's just a stupid thing. And I don't think that even makes sense in a context for something that's taught within colleges, the law and power class. So critical race theory, in my definition, right, it looks at race as well as poverty, because that's they interconnect, right, within American society as a component that the society and the government uses to abnormalize people, like the leper, Michel Foucault's discipline and punish. So CRT seeks to find the difference between the punishments between these two groups and between the abnormalized people and the normalized people within a law and power structure. What do I mean by law and power structure? I mean within the actual law and how it affects these people individually. So just real quick, just get it out of the way. So CRT framework splits these individuals into two groups, as I said, the minoritized, which I said is the abnormalized, and the exploiters, they would say, is the normalized. While exploiters do benefit from a system where they, are privileged, this within itself is not somewhere where you can shift blame onto them. Like, I don't feel bad because I didn't do this, And, here's a simple way to say it, to make it make sense to you, all right? So I have never owned a slave. I've never exploited other people for their wealth. However, I do know that the wealth my family holds and the benefits that my grandfather and grandmother were able to take advantage of, and that wealth that has moved from my family and that will eventually move to me, were molded in part by the fact that, they had it easier to accumulate wealth than Black people in the same era. You know, this doesn't mean, every white person, is well off and doing amazing. Every Black person is dirt poor or never rolls out of poverty. But it does mean that it is more likely for white people to be, well off and Black people to be impoverished. It's just statistics at this point. So, just ask yourself the question: if your great grandfather and grandmother were Black, along with the rest of your family tree, where would you be today, statistically? So that's where I want to talk about CRT. I want to talk about the models and everything in it. So I'm definitely glad to talk about this topic.
All right. Anthony, you can go ahead and attack that.
Sure. So once again, not the moderator. I'm now the debater. So it looks like that's the case. So what is CRT? Oh, CRT actually, Danny actually used my definition, but I'll say it again. Of course, according to the PragerU video, what is critical race theory? It defines CRT as, quote, critical race theory holds that the most important thing about you is your race, the color of your skin. That's who you are, not your behavior, not your values, not your environment, your race. In critical race theory, if you are a member of a minoritized, in quotes, racial group, their term, not mine, you are a victim of a system that is rigged against you. And on the other hand, if your race is privileged, you are an exploiter, whether you intend to be or not. And this is where I really dive in deep into what CRT is, because to me, CRT is just a racist political agenda that's driving our schools into amok, and it's being pushed by the National Education Association and as well as the American Federation of Teachers. So the minoritized group is pretty much like all the minority races in America, from like Hispanics to Blacks, from you name it. The privileged group is white people, and I've been called privileged by an unnamed person in this podcast who I will not say who it is, and other of my friends said that, and I say, well, I'm not privileged because my grandparents immigrated from Italy when they were controlled by fascism, and they immigrated to America, and they came here with nothing in their pockets, and then that they achieved the American dream because they worked hard for what they wanted. And my basis for what I'm arguing for is that your race does not define who you are and what your outcomes are. There are in America we have elected an African American president. Well, more half Black. And Barack Obama did have a white parent and a Black parent, but we have gone so far to do what we've done so far. And in the case of that, in America, America does the most to fix its faults than any other country in the world. And now with CRT in the mix, now we're just going backwards.
Okay. Can I respond to that?
Yep.
And this will be a very quick response.
You can take as much time as you need.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. So in, I believe, the 80s, I think it was the 80s, we made crack cocaine legally different than cocaine. What is the actual difference between crack cocaine and cocaine? Well, I know the difference. I'm not going to tell you why. But it is basically just like baking soda and cocaine mixed together to form a rock. And the reason why they do it is because it's less expensive. You can put less cocaine in there and basically just smoke it and you're, whoa, let's go. I'm not saying I smoke crack. Don't do it. Never have done it. Never will. But that is the difference between crack and cocaine. However, for some reason, the US legal system scheduled it so if you have 5 grams of crack, you are going to prison for 5 years. If you have cocaine, you have to have 500 grams to go to prison for 5 years. Now, what's 5 grams of crack? Well, it's probably the amount any crackhead has on them anytime. I'm not even kidding. Like, look up what 5 grams of crack looks like. It's like it's not it really isn't that much to think that people, especially like low time dealers, will always have that shit on them. So why did I say that? I'm asking you, does this affect the black population worse than white population? Because in my opinion, and in the opinion of statistics, that is so.
Well, I would say you have to really, look at who's being affected by this. And, where I live in New Jersey, I live next door to a major city, Patterson, and that's where a lot of the people in Wayne get their drugs from. And it doesn't matter what race they are, black or white. People do drugs. Obviously, it's not a good thing to do drugs. So, don't do cocaine, don't do crack cocaine, don't do any heroin, don't do any of that stuff. What I'm saying is as you can see by like from what I know, is a lot of people that I know that have done drugs are have been from both races, and people can, yeah, and you can control that, but once you start, you can't get out of it. But to say that, oh yeah, well, one race is doing this, the other race is not, well, that's totally not true because anyone can do drugs. Doesn't matter what race you have
You're
to
right.
be.
You're right.
Well,
However,
just let me finish. I'm just trying to say here is that you can people can live with the consequences and do drugs, or they don't do it and they end up being very successful.
okay. What I'm saying, the difference I'm saying between crack cocaine and cocaine, I'm trying to say here, is that crack cocaine is a very inexpensive drug to make because you're basically diluting cocaine to make the drug itself. So I charge you $5. That's why crackheads exist in the beginning. They can afford crack cocaine now because it's turned into crack. Cocaine, the drug, is a very expensive drug, and it's not going to be used by impoverished people. So why am I connecting black people to poverty? Because they slavery. How long was that happen? How long did slavery go on for? It went on till 1860. I'm not really sure. I'm not gonna try to butcher it.
No, I'll answer
But
that.
it went on for a long time, right? But how long did racism go on for in America? Did we ask that question? Did it end? I mean, these are the questions we got to ask ourselves, especially within the power structure. And listen, critical theory within itself doesn't talk about race. However, the framework itself was used by Harvard professors to make a theory that helps explain race and how the structure within power works there. And I'll debate all day. There's so many examples of it. Redlining, loans to black households. And that has lasted, guess what, to the 50s. So the legal framework was there to impoverish black people, not from slavery, but in the 50s. It hasn't been that long since we've been effing over black people, and now we're doing very good, I have to say, definitely. But listen, you can't solve a problem, especially of that magnitude, in 40 years. I'm sorry. Because
Danny,
intergenerational wealth.
Just to clarify, you're saying that looking at these things that happened in the past is a part of CRT, looking at power structures between white and black people, right?
Well, think about it. Where did your parents get money? I mean, your parents inherited the money, most likely, probably not millions. My parents are not millionaires, but they either got property from my parents or they got money. I'm not going to disclose what my parents got, but it was a lot. But how did they get there? How did my grandfather make a ton of money? Over black people at the same era. If you were to look statistically back then and look at the wages difference between white and black people, it's crazy, right? It's not just that though. It's an intergenerational wealth that's not built up from just years and years of freedom. I mean, we always talk about, freedom and liberties. Everybody should have freedom and liberties. But if you don't have a freaking liberty to even get a loan, what is this? It's just not. It really isn't liberty, and and this shows that, right? It's the lack of liberty shows that you're not getting wealthy. You will continually, but you know, I have to say that now I would say from the 90s on, we've gotten a lot better. Definitely. Because, you know, there was a period, especially Clinton's, where we weren't doing very good. We were going in the opposite direction, and then we were kind of fixed it. You know, there's a couple problems still.
All right, I'll let Anthony respond, and then we'll move on to a question.
So for my rebuttal from what Danny's saying is that like he accumulated wealth from his ancestors and how race now basically we've been racism. Well, there's 2 points I want to make. First of all, finding the end to racism is like finding the cure to cancer. There will never be an end to racism, unfortunately, mostly because there's always going to be racist people out there. As much as I want end to racism, it just never bound to happen. And second, there's a thing called inheritance. When people die, they inherit the other person's money. I'm pretty sure, you know, when someone close to me, you know, passes away, I probably would get some of their money. It's not being privileged. It's just what happens when someone
Would you
dies.
also get property? Would you get property?
Would I get property? I don't know. Depends on what they have in their will, I would say.
I'm definitely gonna get property. I have
All right, that's you then.
I'm just saying, I'm definitely gonna get property. So I'm just saying that's another thing you have to add to that cake. But go on.
Well, I'd say, well, it depends on what's in the person's will, if they want to get the property away or not.
Well, I mean, if they die, they have to give it away to someone. Whether he's gonna sell it, I'm like,
They could sell it, or they could just give it to one of their family
they're still gonna
members.
have that.
But hold on. I'm just saying that they can just give it to their family members, or they can just sell it completely, and someone else can just live there.
I'm just saying that's a lot of wealth. You know, if I have a house and I have a whole ton of money, and you know, if I die and I give it to my kids, you know, they're gonna be well off. I know I'm gonna be well off. My parents die. I don't want them to die, obviously, but like,
right.
I definitely recognize that. You know, it's something that, you know, maybe you don't think about it now. I don't. Nobody wants to really think about it because nobody wants to think about the parents dying. But inheritance, you do get a lot if you come from a family that, you know, had a lot of money to begin with.
Well, all I'm saying is that when you inherit something, it was your people, it was the family, it was your family members that belonged to you before. Like that's not being privileged or racist. Just life.
But what if you're privileged just because other people, the black people, couldn't do that in the 50s? What if they couldn't get a loan for a house in the 50s?
Well, this is
now
the 50s. This is 2021.
I know, but back then, you see what I'm saying? The generation, this is a different generation. It's not your generation. You're inheriting this wealth. So if black people weren't able to buy a house back then, even if they had money to do so, what would they pass down? Their income. They just rented. This is what I'm talking about.
Right,
look at the numbers.
We're gonna move on to a question here. So do you guys think that US history can accurately be taught without critical race theory?
Absolutely not. Wait, what was the question again?
Can US history be accurately taught without critical race theory?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, yeah. Of course you can. I think the way it was taught back when I was in high school was actually fine. Um, Without because now you see what's going on in school boards. Like so many parents nowadays hate critical race theory. I even spoke to my own school board opposing critical race theory. This stuff's nuts. And for some reason, teachers want the National Education Association wants it to be taught to students, and it's so sad because it's just a dark racist ideology or agenda. But the teachers are there to do one thing: is teach the facts, and this isn't facts; it's indoctrination.
Okay, so here's my simple response to this question. Critical race theory, as a theory, can only be taught in one place. And guess where that is? US colleges. And the only way you're even going to ever learn about critical race theory in a high school is if you're taking a college credit course. Why do I say that? That framework is in the literal class, Law and Power. And you can go look throughout the entire US history. That is not critical race theory, is not standard. And you know why it isn't? Where did critical theory come from? Where did Foucault Michel Foucault get his ideas from? Want to wager a guess? Who else looked at power and structures and economics
Marx.
way back? Oh, that guy! Ooh, yeah. So no, definitely not. This theory is not in the government legislature. However, this is the scary point I want to bring up. The fact that we're arguing about this within schools, it scares me because now you're going to remove critical thinking and stuff that involves race within U.S. history. And now, why am I concerned about this to begin with? Well, look at a New Jersey textbook, and then go look at a Mississippi textbook. I guarantee you, when you go look at the Civil War, what will happen is the New Jersey textbook will pretty much give it like a pretty good, recount, say, slavery bad, blah, 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 whatever, regular Confederate nonsense, blah. But when you look at, in Mississippi, you'll see them be a little more, sympathetic to the Confederates. And what they won't talk about, the fact that Black people were literally property. And that they will even acknowledge the fact that people and white people within that area, they lost a ton of money, especially the South, lost a ton of money when slavery stopped. They'll have like stories inside. They'll be like, okay, so Kathy Woods, had I don't know why I'm using Kathy Woods as an example here, but Kathy Woods is like over here. She got like so much like wealth from her plantation, and she lost it all when the Civil War happened, and now she's destitute. That is literally like a story within a book within the Mississippi. So this is where I don't want American school literature to move away from telling just the sober history of America to this, like, it already happened with Indians. Look at what we talk about when we talk about Indians within our culture. Just look, like, you will have some teachers definitely, say, but you're not going to learn actually anything about it. I had to learn from a college class anything about what happened, like, really within Indian culture. You'll learn about, the master, there was it the tear, I forget that thing, the walk of tears or something. You learn about that. You'll learn about that in high school, right? But you won't learn about the fact that, like, we kind of just like completely fucked over every single time we went up there. We just go, oh yeah, no, we'll sign this contract, yeah, sure thing. Then instantly plow right through them. It happened literally right through the plains, killed all the Plains Indians. Then you move over to California, and they're just like, all right, that is mine now. We don't ever talk.
Gonna get a rebuttal to that.
Yep.
But like, it's just
let him
that
respond,
history.
let him respond.
So you do mention the Trail of Tears. You mentioned slavery. You mentioned all these like not so great times in American history. And I will admit, America is not a perfect country, but like I mentioned before, we do the best to improve on our faults. The main purpose of why so many people are against critical race theory is because it pretty much just teaches students to hate their own country, and that's indoctrination at its best. I mean, obviously, yeah, I learned about the Trail of Tears. I learned about slavery. I learned about these dark times in our country, and obviously, there were bad moments for us. And obviously, obviously, should people learn about them? Yeah, yeah, we should, but not not in a way where you can be indoctrinated.
I just, listen, I just want a whole bunch of people that are rational decision makers, okay? And I'd rather it be taught to them sober than to go over and be like, okay, the Confederates, like they were like pretty good too. Like they fought for, like, if you defend the Confederacy, you're insane. Why? Because what else, what reason did they have other than literally keeping people enslaved? Like you could have the debate all you want over state rights versus federal rights. Okay, you can have it all you want. Okay, but it's not the reason why the war happened. It actually is, and it also is that, because it's literally that equation, right? Is that a really section of America still wanted slavery. But the reason why I want this to be drilled into our kids' heads is because what if we actually go back to something we did wrong? I mean, we don't want history to repeat ourselves. That's why we teach history in the first place to our kids. So if we teach a sober history that racism, and especially the the Martin Luther King area of racism, because that is the actual like thing that we have to be concerned about. I don't really think that like we're gonna be moving backwards, but I'm just saying, we had to actually like look at it soberly, because we're not looking at CRT when we look at that. That is models and frameworks that you can't even understand as a person within like really like a high school level. Like maybe like when you're like almost going to college, but like CRT is very hard to understand, especially Foucault's nonsense he puts in everything. But I'm just saying, like within schools, it's just fine to teach sober history. Why? Because if we don't teach sober history, we are going to make the same mistake that we did before.
Do you want to respond to that, Anthony?
Sure. Pretty much I'll just repeat what I said before, that we should, not indoctrinate our children since they are the most vulnerable population. And
Well,
just, wait,
how's it
hold on,
indoctrinated?
hold on, hold
I
on.
just want to know, how's it indoctrination
Well,
though?
I mentioned in my definition.
No, but how?
Because
Indoctrination, the definition is literally trying to tell somebody,
wait,
what are they indoctrinating them
I'm
to?
doing the rebuttal right now. Can I speak, please? Can I speak, please?
I know. I just want to answer this question. What are they indoctrinating to? What are they getting indoctrinated to believe?
A political agenda.
It's not it's the history. I just want sober
No, it's
history.
not.
I have a question.
How is sober history a political agenda?
Anthony, do you think that patriotic education is indoctrination as well?
No,
Why
absolutely not. Because you should learn to be. You should need to learn to love your country. That's
if you want to love your country, you want to be a rational person. Because if you're not, you're just going to be detrimental.
And like I mentioned all the time, if you don't love America, get out.
Well, I love America.
I know you love America, Dan. I never said you did. I'm saying there are people like self-proclaimed Marxists that hate America, like Antifa. And if they hate there so much, then go to Cuba and see how that feels. I'm pretty sure you'll think of a great time there. But I'd say, you know what, you're probably gonna make the wrong move.
I'm not arguing for those people. I'm not arguing for the people that are ultra patriotic. I'm arguing for people to sit down, look at history, and be rational about it. That's all I'm arguing for. And if we don't have our kids do that, we are going to make the wrong path if we go far left or we go far right. I'm just preaching rationality here.
Okay, so it seems like you guys both think that CRT shouldn't really be taught in like elementary schools or like high schools until like at least the end.
It's just not taught.
No, okay, not taught at all. Okay, Anthony, do you think that CRT could be taught in colleges?
I don't think CRT should be taught. Period. Why? Do you want to explain on that more? Okay, I'll explain. Like I said many times. So I said, see, because you're in the school to learn. You're not in school to be taught a certain ideology from any, like the Democrat side or Republican side or the Libertarians. You're in school to just learn the facts, not a political agenda. And that's why CRT should not be taught at all, anywhere.
Okay, I'll respond really quickly to this. Just swinging that question in. So CRT, right, in school in general and college, you pay for that class. So I'm pretty sure it's just your choice whether you want to learn it or not. And the reason why it's important for you to learn about CRT and really just critical theory in general, or any power structure, is because you live in a society. Well, joke, but you actually live in a society. So guess what? You're affected by the outcomes of society and the actual power structure of society. So if you're not going to learn about that, well, you shouldn't complain when society comes from the rear, comes behind you, and fucks you. Okay.
All right.
I don't know what you mean by that, Danny, but all I'm saying
No,
is,
like for example, like if like say
hold on.
If you got cancer tomorrow, and then you had to go pay for it all, society's fucking you. Because guess what? I can go in Germany, and guess what? They're going to pay for that all for free. So that's an example within my framework. I'm a white guy, so I can't be talk about CRT stuff. So I mean, it doesn't really affect me. That's like my example.
Hey, well, if you want to go get treated in Germany for cancer, that's your choice. So
I want to do that in America. I just want to do that here.
Or then do it in America. Then do it in America.
I will in like 10 years, hopefully. Maybe more.
All right. So we'll do one more quick question, and then we'll go on to closing statements. So since I feel like both of you guys kind of agree we shouldn't be teaching CRT to young children. The narrative being pushed is kind of that like it is currently being taught, and I don't really think that's necessarily true. Do you think that it's just being used to like divide and distract us?
Yes, definitely. Because as you see here, like I said, about the parents speaking out against at school board meetings, speaking out against this. I saw a video of like a school board member, excuse my language, called a parent an asshole, and then the parent like charged to the school member. And he goes, "Oh, why'd you call me that? Why'd you call me that?" Like it just going to just goes to show how like politically divided we've come as a country. Like Joe Biden, he ran on a platform saying he was going to fix the political divide. He's made it a lot worse. And in my opinion, I think the political divide is going to take an entire generation to fix. And I'd say like once the decade ends, I think we're still going to be politically divided going into the 2030s.
I totally agree. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I just agree with Anthony. Um, um, I was gonna say something. Well, it's one of these manufactured problems, right? That we have to deal with. Like, I can't even believe that we even have people at board meetings yelling at freaking like school members talking about critical race theory when it's not even a framework that they will even have to worry about in elementary school. Like, you can't critically think till you're 11 years old. Like, it doesn't, you can't do that. Physically, your brain cannot do that. You're not at the stage until you're 11 to critically think. So it doesn't even matter within elementary schools and high school. Okay, it's not even taught unless you take the college class. So, that's just my spiel there.
All right. So we'll just go on to closing statements. If anything has anyone else they want to say, let Anthony go first.
All right, and so Eric, I'm glad you got to see what it's like being in my shoes for once. So I just want to say for final statements that CRT is just doesn't belong in America. It doesn't belong in our schools, and students should not be taught a political agenda. Obviously, Danny thinks otherwise, but you know what? You're allowed to have, would you want to, think a certain way, or want to think all white people are privileged. Do you want to say I'm privileged? Yeah, fine, go for it. I'm going to say no, I'm not, because I'm not privileged, and my family does not come from a place of privilege because we worked our butts off to get to the place that we are today. But know this, that your race does not define what you are in America. You can be, born in poverty and become a successful businessman of a multi-million-dollar company, because that is what makes America great.
All
Yeah,
right, Danny,
I definitely agree with Anthony. You, as a Black person, you can go anywhere. But here's the thing: we gotta look at everything sober. Why? It's important to be a rational person. I don't think that you should be taught CRT in high school. Why? It's just regular shit. Okay, just stick. You're going to college for theories. Okay, that's why you go. But like, listen, if you want to learn more about power structure, all the power to you. Because guess what? You're going to learn more about your society, and you're going to learn more about how to better make decisions within your structure. Right? I'm a white guy, so like I'm not really too concerned about CRT, right? But I am concerned about CT, baby. I'm concerned about critical theory and within the power structure of the United States. So, as a person, it's your responsibility to go take control of your life and make good decisions for yourself. So, a good decision for yourself, I definitely recommend, is to either look at critical theory or critical race theory, maybe if you're Black, okay? At least take a sober look at it. You don't have to agree with everything in it. I certainly don't agree with everything within critical race theory. I do agree with a lot of things in it. I do agree with a lot of things in critical theory. And, looking at power structures is very important. And, it's kind of one of my favorite things because one of my favorite people is Noam Chomsky, who looks at America's power structure, not in the same way that Foucault did, but he looked at within groups and groups within the top part of society and how actual corporations are structured, and those groups, like corporation groups. And that is all in its book, Manufactured Consent. You can go read it. Amazing book. But it's definitely learning power structures in society is only going to benefit you.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was a good debate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric, for moderating.
No problem.